So you got yourself a Sony Alpha camera. This one is the Sony A7 Mark II. You've also got some vintage lenses. Oh yes, it can be done. I've been watching some reviews on YouTube and that about using vintage lenses on this. I've used I've got the old OM lenses because we had Olympus cameras. So there you go. That's a 35mm Zuiko lens. It's a 2.8 aperture. It's quite a good lens, that one. I've got a 50mm one and we've got a 100 to 200 zoom lens. I was using these on my old Olympus E3, but this is the new camera, full frame. So, how'd you get a vintage lens onto a Sony Alpha body? Quite easy, really. I've seen these, people have done reviews on these. This is the KF Concept. This is an adapter, which goes from Sony E mount to Olympus OM mount. So all you do is pop your lens off your camera, like so. Take your little adapter, like so. Can't get the cap off. Get your OM lens, line the dots up. I always hold the adapter when I'm doing this, turning the lens, because they're a bit tight sometimes. And I don't want to do any damage to the camera body. And there we go. We've now got a fully manual aperture, focus, fully manual OM lens on a fully digital camera body. Now there's two ways you can set the camera up for this. You can set it into manual mode where you've got control over all the settings. For doing that you sort of really need to know what you're doing, and because I'm a bit lazy, I can't be doing my thinking about stuff when I want to take photos, I put it in Aperture Priority, set it to ISO Auto. It does all the metering for you and everything, so if you adjust your aperture on the aperture ring like that, the camera takes into account for that and it meters accordingly, and you will see as you open or shut the aperture you'll see it get brighter or darker, and then the camera compensates for it. For focusing, I've got the center button set for focus magnifier. I've also got peaking switched on so that I can really zoom in and really focus on that subject and then take a picture. In Aperture Priority it will set the shutter speed so that it's got the correct shutter speed for the amount of light coming in. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, but generally it's pretty good. So I took it outside last night. I've got the 50mm and we've got the 100 to 200mm zoom lens. I was pretty much just using the 35mm last night, and I've got some pictures. I'll bring them up on the computer, we'll have a look and I'll zoom right in, see how sharp they are. This is my first go trying these lenses and getting the settings right on the camera, so they might not be as perfect as they could be, and I'll just put some pictures on that I just edited a little bit quickly for sticking on social media last night. So that is pretty much it. This KF Concept adapter was about 24 euros, something like that. It's not expensive. They do have adapters so that you can use, there's no communication between the camera body and the lens with this. It is fully manual. You can get adapters so that you can use other third-party lenses, like you can put a Canon lens onto it and the autofocus functionality will still be working with the camera. But these are old manual lenses. It's just another way of taking photos. It feels different because obviously you're not pressing the button and it's focusing. You've actually got to take a bit of time, and so it wouldn't be any good for sports photography or anything you wanted to do that was fast. But just for portraits or landscapes, anything like that, it's perfect. So we'll jump onto the computer and we'll see what results we got out of this 35mm. These are the photos in Photoshop. One of Tina, one of some conifers, a weed with some seeds on it, a strawberry plant, and an OM lens. So we'll start with this one here. It's quite clear. I've set all these to Adobe Neutral on the camera raw settings, so you'll just get, I think one of them is camera settings neutral, but I've tried to set them all to neutral. So this one here, 35mm lens. I can't remember what the apertures were because the lens doesn't communicate with the camera. It doesn't record what the aperture was, but we'll zoom in. I think I was focusing on Tina's hat. So, this is at 400%. Let's go 500%. Everything's still quite in focus at 500%. I don't know what the aperture is, so I'm not sure. A lot of people were saying that it loses sharpness on the edges, but I mean, in the middle here, it's all looking pretty good, acceptable for me anyway. Let's go on to this one. This is the conifers. I took this with the 100mm to 200mm zoom lens, so we'll just zoom in. I was shaking about a little bit, and I didn't have the stabilisation set for that particular length of lens, so that's a little bit out of focus. Although the peaking said it was in focus, that was my fault, not the camera or the lens. This one here, it's just a weed. Let's zoom in. Obviously, the aperture was wide open, hence the blurred background here. So we'll zoom in on the. It's not bad focus really. That's at 200%. Let's go to 400%. It's pretty good. Let's go to the next picture, which is the strawberry. And this one is really sharp. Obviously, it was a wide open aperture, so you're getting all the blurred out background. But we'll zoom in on the leaf. And it is looking really sharp. Even you can see the hairs on the leaves. For me, that's bang on. For an old 1972 manual lens, this is at 400%. And I would say that's pretty good. Up here, you're going to lose focus because it's a wide open aperture. And if I'd have shut the aperture right down, it would be focused across the board. I don't know how sharp it would be, but I wasn't really experimenting for that last night. So that's that one. Last picture is the old 50mm and the 100, 200. As you can see, the aperture's wide, wide open at 2.8, and this was right next to it, and that's all out of focus. But we'll zoom in on this. 200%. The writing's just slightly out of focus there, but it's focusing on the lens itself. For me, that's more than acceptable. So yeah, this is that same picture, and this is just how I've edited it, basically. That's a picture of the zoom lens, 100 to 200mm. Obviously the wide open aperture, you're getting the blurred out background. Tina doing some watering. That's that same strawberry plant. Just cropped in a little bit and a bit of tweaking. That's that same seed one. And I took some out the window, and it was almost dark outside. You can see this is very, very noisy because I set the ISO to auto, and we got a lot of noise over here, and we'll zoom into that. It's very, very grainy there. But the other picture I took out the window, I had that set on ISO 200, I believe. Shot it in RAW so I could bring up the shadows. All this lot on the original photo was black, but I've sort of squeezed out some colours and you know, it's still a bit noisy in the shadows. And it's, you know, very noisy down here. But handheld, shot out the window, and it was almost, you know, dark. The sun had gone down. You could see this bit of colour in the sky. I don't even know what the shutter speed was now. But anyway, that was handheld at almost dark, and I've managed to get this out of the shadows. So I think that's done quite well for an old 1972 lens. There's a fly coming for a visit on the table. And we've got a couple of flower shots here. I mean, this has come up quite sharp. It's been obviously been processed, so you know, it's not like the raw image. Another flower one here. I just like to mess about with some pictures sometimes, just try different effects. And so zoom in on this one. You see, the more you sort of mess about with them, this was quite sharp through here. But you know, the original size picture, I think that's quite acceptable. So that's it for this video. OM lens on a Sony Alpha body. This is obviously the full frame A7 Mark II. And I think you'll agree, it took some quite reasonable pictures. There are obviously better lenses out there, you know, some of the expensive Sony G lenses, G Master I think they call them, but you're talking thousands for those. You can pick these OM lenses up, or if you've got some of the old Canon lenses or Minolta, anything like that, you can get an adapter for it. And because you can pick these lenses up cheap on eBay, second hand, go for it. Have some fun. So catch you in the next video. Bye for now.